welcome to this evening's show. My name is Guy, and I've got an amazing guest with me, Jason. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, Jason, you come from all kinds of places. You do all sorts of amazing and wonderful things. You write books. You run a major podcast. The podcast we're talking about, folks, of course, is Dungeons and Randomness. Is that the official title of the podcast as well?
It is, yeah. We didn't know it was going to be a big thing 10 years ago, so...
Look at how he says it. He's like, we didn't know it was going to be a big thing 10 years ago. We've been going for 10 years, so that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So Jason, tell us a little bit about the podcast and why has it been going for so long?
Well, I don't know if I can answer the second part, but I'm too dumb to do anything else. That's my official answer. So in our podcast, we play in the world of Theria. It's completely homebrew, and it's probably a lower magic setting would be the elevator pitch, and things are a lot more dangerous. Instead of getting into 3 or 4 combats a day, you're lucky if you do one, but usually your life is on the line. There are, right now we just started our 4th arc, and there are 4 different groups exploring different continents in the world. So you can pick up any one of these groups. It's a completely self-contained campaign they're doing. But we have definitely done things on the show where groups run into each other. They either team up, they've fought each other before. Things that happen with one group in a timeline carries over. It's all one continuous thing. So I think one of the things that people really gravitate to is the fact that the players shape the world as much as I do. Their ability to change things, have agency, and really kind of shape the world is pretty massive, I think.
There you go. Absolutely. I'm just busy showing the guys the website at the moment. Now, you wrote the book Theria, which is the...
I helped write. We had a fantastic team. My partner Bree worked on it.
Right.
And members of the cast and stuff, yeah.
All right, so that's the book. You can pick up your copy of the book, the hardcover there, $40. You've seen it on my show before, folks, if you've watched the show, because I had the book. I mean, it's a great, thick book. I mean, it's absolutely filled with everything that you could possibly want. And then I did like the map, this big map that falls out. I really like that. I thought that was super cool. Okay, so there's 4 different podcasts then, is that right?
Well, it's one podcast, 4 different groups.
Okay, so how does that then work? Do you listen to the group you like, or is it just every second week or third week it's a different group?
We've had people just listen to the group they like. I would highly suggest listening to all of it. Of course, I have a bias, but I think each group offers something different. If you're listening for more of a comedy thing, we have groups for that. If you want more of high adventure, we have a group coming up for that. We have one. Our very next episode coming out this is late Sunday night into Monday. It's a group playing basically town guard. Like they're going to try and clean up the nastiest city on our main continent, and I have no idea how they're going to do that, but they're going to give it a shot, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they try and shape the city.
There you go. That sounds awesome. That sounds absolutely fantastic. And you're the GM across the board. You're running the whole thing.
Yeah, I have terrible control issues.
Don't we all? Yes. So there we go. That's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. So that's why Jason has joined us this evening, is to bring all of that GM controlness experience to the table. So if you have your questions for your TTRPG that you're currently running or are in, now is the time to ask them. This show is for you on that front. So please, if you have questions, just as Honorable 596 has done in chat there, put the word question in caps so that I can see it, and then I will go through it and I will read it and take it from there. So we do have some questions already that have come in from that. Big hello to everybody who I usually see in chat. Lance, I hope you're doing okay. Usually Lance gives me this weird language introduction thing, which is all very interesting. So BK Dan says, how do you homebrew rules for advancing to level 21 and beyond? Do you ever go higher than level 20, Jason?
Honestly, I think the highest in 5e that we've gotten is 12 or 13. And then honestly, that was enough for me to look at the rest of the cast and go, we need to do something, because like combat is a drag. It's so slow, and it kind of sucks the air out of the room, because we were talking before this went live, and I believe your exact words were, okay, I can't hit you, you can't hit me, but we're stopping a lot to acknowledge that. So honestly, my answer isn't one that I would suggest, but we're working on our own RPG to kind of tailor fit something to us. But I believe anything can be homebrewed if you spend enough time on it, and God knows I did that with 4e. I think by the time it was done, it was basically just the 4e skin. We were wrapping the podcast around like it was a completely different system. But if you spend enough time on it, I believe a lot of the answer is ditching things for weight, getting rid of spells that don't work, getting rid of things that seem silly on the face of it, and worry about filling that in later. Because in the base player's handbook, there are over 400 spells.
Absolutely.
You don't need 400 spells. You don't. So I think that a lot of it is just getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, once you get past level 20, it is a case of saying, well, you can cast 10 or 15 first level spells, but they don't mean anything at level 21.
No.
They shouldn't mean anything at level 21. Your character really shouldn't be relying on Magic Missile if they are fighting against a level 20 creature or something that is of an equivalent value. So if you're going to homebrew stuff, my advice, very similar to what Jason was saying, look at saying, okay, cool, that's all the little stuff. That's the stuff that other people have to worry about. But how do you step up to the next level where it doesn't become a slogfest? And I honestly believe that's a case of saying, okay, cool, well, you have now transcended from the mundane physical prime material plane where minor magic affects you. And I would actually look at having a whole new stack of magic on top of that, which should be sort of multiverse magic, perhaps, where instead of it just being you can cast magic, there's a consequence. You are drawing power from another plane to cast magic on this one that's of scale enough to actually have impact. So I would perhaps look in that kind of direction. I'm not sure. But it is a tricky one. I don't think I've ever gone above level 15 either, because after that point, it's like, well, okay, yes, you're immortal, you shadow step, you can't get hit, you can't do this, you can't do...
Exactly.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what you want to do anymore. It's just do your thing, right? So yeah, I think it does become a tricky one. Honorable 596 says, or asks, worked on some magic items recently. Mind giving your thoughts? So a blindfold that inverts your sight. Dark becomes light and light becomes dark. Okay, so the negative image.
Yeah.
You will see in the blackest night as well as in the brightest day, but in the same time at the brightest day. This does pierce magic darkness. What do you think about that blindfold? Is it really something that we need?
I was trying to think about when that would come in handy.
Yeah.
Because we already have so many items that give you magic sight or dark sight. So I almost think Riddick when I think of that for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Chronicles of Riddick. Yes, very much so.
I think that would be neat if that were your only option. Like for some reason that character couldn't use magic or something, but they have this. I think that would be. I think that'd be something where you could, like story wise, that'd be a neat thing to put on.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you there. I'm going to say, the inversion, it doesn't necessarily have anything. I mean, this is the other thing, right? Is that At no point does 5th edition, I stand to be corrected, ever take into account color. So dark vision is like, you see everything in black and white, sort of whatever.
Yeah.
And you go, well, sure, but then if I write with red pen on a green paper, you won't be able to read it in black and white. And I mean, that's something that is literally what they used to do in Hollywood to make pages uncopyable, was that they would just print the page on red paper. And so photocopiers in the old days, which would just see that as black, would then not be able to photocopy the pages. So D&D doesn't take that into account. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't take into account freshwater and saltwater either. So you're like, well, okay, fine, sure, but yes, all right. So that's that one. White Tiger 225 says, you have the favor of a noble and the help of gnollish mercenaries. What would be your first steps to building an evil empire? Ditch the gnolls.
You got some real dumb helpers, man.
Absolutely. But isn't that required, though, if you are an evil overlord, to have dumb helpers, the ones that won't lock the gate, that will be just dangerous enough to the villagers but not enough for the heroes?
Yeah, but I don't think gnolls are where you start, because that's how you become Cobra Commander. Skeletor, you're always going to be beaten. You want them just smart enough to be able to help. Like, when I think gnolls, I think, I don't know, cutting off supply lines, attacking merchants, travelers, that type of thing.
Yes.
But beyond that, they're so dumb.
They're not. Yeah, you want hobgoblins, really? Or are they too?
I get, if you're going traditional, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, I think the noble is going to give you the trade supply lines of the kingdom, right? Because you have the favor of the noble. So the noble, you'd say, right, you go back to court and find out where the queen's supply is, find out where the mint is, find out when this is going to happen, when that's going to happen. Send out your gnolls to attack those lines, hopefully succeed, bring back some cash to continue funding it, and then upscale. I mean, that's the business.
So the noble gets plausible deniability and gets to hurt competitors and all that. Yeah, that's probably
it. Absolutely.
Until they eventually betrays you. Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the noble is ultimately going to be using you for their own ends, and of course, you using them for your own ends and that sort of thing.
You're their dumb guy that is just smart enough to help them out.
There you go. But actually, you're cunning. Yeah. It does give me an idea, though, for an NPC who should approach players and go, hey, you need a mercenary band? I've got entry-level gnolls, or I may have some trained elf assassins. Like a catalog of category 1 through 5 want to start a war thing. I don't know. It's what was that film with Nicolas Cage where he was selling arms and he was a gun?
Lord of War. It's fantastic.
There you go. 30 Sock says, planning on running a pirate campaign. Not sure how to start creating a fantasy world that's close to the golden age of piracy. Any tips? Should I go with real world and magic instead? I have but one word for you, laddie. That's what you go with. You buy the book. That's why
I'll honestly second that, because Guy was kind enough to send us a copy, and it's really quite good. I liked it. I liked it better than Salt Marsh. I'm just saying. Yes! I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not being paid to say that.
No, that's right. Yeah, absolutely, because we're too cheap.
Yeah, you need a budget to pay somebody.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah, absolutely. So, in all honesty, 30 Socks, the reason why I say the book is not because I want you to go and buy the book. That would be nice if you have the funds and if you have the resources and you're looking for a book to get. But I wrote that book specifically to handle the question that you are asking. Pirate campaign, how do you do it? And the real question, in the book, we decided the real question is not how do you set up ship battles? Because Wizards of the Coast came up with an okay system, kind of okay system for it. But they didn't answer the fundamental problem, which is you might have some players who don't want to be pirates, or who don't want to make a pirate off the bat, someone who's got sailor skills and all that sort of thing. How are they going to be engaged whilst you're doing your ship to ship combat and sailing around the seven seas? So that's what we specifically answered. Was we said, hey, it doesn't matter what background you come from. You could be a rogue, or you could be a paladin who wears plate armor. In our system, you will still have the ability to interact during ship combat and to make a difference. So that was one of our big focuses on that book. So I would suggest checking that out as a starter. All right, Hogner says, "Woohoo, Jason! There you go. Absolutely, great to have you here." Right, let's see, where are we going? Riddick 1 and 3 are great. 3.
Wait, there's a third one?
That's what yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay, so there's Riddick 1.
And then there's
no. There is 3. There is 3. I watched it the other day. So there's Riddick 1, which is the whole darkness and get to the spaceship.
Pitch Black.
Pitch Black,
is
right?
what it's called. Yes.
So that was Pitch Black. Then there was Chronicles of Riddick, which was the weird Judi Dench thing, right?
Yeah, that was
not worth
very
watching.
Warhammer, yeah.
That's right. And then Riddick 3 absolutely was the one where he's on a planet with a dog. And there are a whole bunch of mercenaries that come down, and it's actually pretty good. Why
haven't I watched this?
There you go. I don't think it had mainstream release, because I think the White Tiger says it was funded by Vin Diesel himself. So I think it was him and a bunch of buddies having fun. And it's actually not bad. It is actually not bad. So,
dude, I'll watch that.
There you go. There you go. Something to look forward to. And also interesting storylines when you look at Riddick. I mean, the second one was awful. I don't remember why. I just remember watching it going, wow, this was awful.
Well, everything that made the first movie charming was one, Riddick works best when he's silent. Yeah. He's Batman. So when Batman starts delivering soliloquies and it takes all the mystique out of the character. Like, if you ever played Chronicles of Butcher Bay.
I have not. But,
It's a fantastic game, as from like the OG Xbox generation, but you basically play as, it's a prequel, so you're playing as Riddick in prison, but it's the special prison where it's part stealth game, part action, but it's really quite good. And I always kind of wish they continued with that, but I don't think Riddick was a really bankable franchise after the second movie.
No, but that second movie was interesting though. Do you remember, or were you aware of the social media that came out of that with regards to our hobby?
No.
So in that one, Vin Diesel tried to teach Dame Judi Dench how to roleplay and how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And that was the big media storm, was like Judi Dench playing Dungeons and Dragons on the set of Chronicles of Riddick. That is how then people started to realize that Vin Diesel was big into his role playing. And I think that is then how he ended up doing that one show with Matthew Mercer and everybody, which I really had hoped was going to be great, but it for me, it just felt like nobody wanted to be there. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it felt weird.
I think at a certain point there's so much polish that goes into a production like that.
Yeah.
And they probably went to say things 2 or 3 times and they had him repeat it, and and eventually it kind of strangles the vibe. Like, okay, if you remember back when we used to be able to meet up in person and like play games.
That was a long time ago when all the little children were knee-high to a grasshopper.
I miss conventions.
Don't even start.
But
anyway.
Imagine someone's hovering over you filming it the entire time, and every time you go to roll die, it's like, the camera didn't pick that up, do that again. Or that the lighting was bad. Like, it would kind of take all the spontaneity out of something that needs spontaneity.
That's it. I agree. There you go. Painful DM says, given your answer about high levels and streamlining your game, when have you begun the conversations with your group about when to start that streamlining process? So I guess a bit of a more generic one would be, do you have conversations with your players going, well, we could do Slogfest, or we could just move through.
I do have tremendous control issues, but I've never been the type of guy to just tell everybody, well, this is what we're doing. Like I always ask, because the most important thing is everyone is having fun. And I think partway that there have been boss fights that we've built up over years, and we get to it, and at that point the group is a high enough level, and the conditions are just right for a fight to last 7 hours. To wrap up our first arc, we had this huge battle, and it was a 7-hour fight. And I think at that point we all look at each other and go, okay, we all agree that's the bar, right? 7 hours for a fight is too much. Okay, so what do we do to change that? And I try to fix things. If I see a problem coming, I try to fix things. Myself and Bree, my partner, we went through every spell in the PHP when we first got it, and we cut out a lot of things like mind control and teleport, because we kind of saw those as get out of RP spells. Like,
right,
I don't want to talk. I don't want to. So we're just gonna, bamf over here, or mind control a noble to, So I think it's about spotting problems before they're big problems, so you don't have to gut everything and do it in one big chunk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that makes great sense. I know what I do is, generally speaking, and this does not go down well with many people, by the way, but it prevents the 7-hour combat. Is I just change values on the fly. So if I've got a big bad and the battle is going on and the guys are really punching it up, and there's drama and there's action and it's just going really well, I might have on that sheet that they suddenly regain 50 hit points when they drop below a thing because they've got a magic item. I might just ignore that and go, you know what? They're having so much fun. They deserve this victory. Let's just finish it off. Now, it does in a large degree take away agency from their ability to do damage and stuff, but it's just saying that their imaginary numbers and my imaginary numbers don't have to fight imaginary battles for so long. Right. That's my personal opinion on it. I mean, I know that a lot of people say, no, you shouldn't do that. So, but again, different game for different people, right?
Right. I think I'm a purist that way, where people have asked me that type of stuff. Do you fudge rolls? It's like, no, that would be improper. That would violate the spirit of the game. Like, there's this, because I want all of my rolls are public, so I want my players to know, obviously, that I'm being honest when when there's a crit, one way or the other. But more than that, I kind of look at players and I understand that they're toolboxes, right? Every player comes in with a couple of tools. They got a screwdriver and a hammer. By the time you reach level 13, 14, 15, you're getting like level 7, 8, 9 spells. They're a whole workshop. So what makes that combat longer isn't necessarily hit points or damage values. It's, I go to do something, and then every player goes, whoa, I have a thing. Hold on. And they're fumbling through character sheet stuff because they're looking for it. They know they have a spell because they have 50, or they have a superiority die thing that they could use, or whatever. And 2 or 3 of them have something that could interrupt that move or change it, or do something. And the big bad can do the same thing. So we're all interrupting each other and cutting each other off. There needs to be a talking stick when in combat. There needs to be something, and I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers, but we're trying to develop a system that would fix that, like make combat, not grind the momentum to a halt.
There you go. Absolutely. And also it's group for group, right? You get some groups who want to do the number rolling and to beat the numbers because that's their approach. There's nothing wrong with that. Hogness then says, on the topic of magic items, I recently made a magic weapon called Javelin of the Pale. Javelin of the Pale 1, I think, because it might be a typo. Otherwise, it's Javelin of the Pale on. But I think Javelin of the Pale 1. That it's basically a javelin that if it hits the one who throws it... If it hits, the one who throws it teleports to the javelin and can expend a bonus action to make a secondary attack. All right, so you throw it, you hit with it, you teleport straight to where it is, and then you can hit again.
I like that.
It's fun. It's quite powerful, and if I throw it in an inanimate object, can I still teleport to that inanimate object? Because now you created basically a tool that allows me to teleport. 60 feet is the range of a thrown javelin. So as long as I can throw it and it hits at something, and does the ground count as something that it could hit? And then you could just teleport to it. I think some little clarity on that would go a long way. But yeah, cool idea.
That's the tough thing about creating anything in a TTRPG is you got to run it through 50 filters, because you'll have this really cool idea. So the first thing I thought of was, you throwing this, let's say we go back to our gnoll flunkies. You throw this at a gnoll, it hits them dead in the chest, you teleport, you twist the knife kind of thing. I think that's a very cool thing. And then Guy, immediately it's like, there's like 8 ways to exploit that.
Yeah.
Like that type of thing.
I had the most awfully awful and yet very educational experience. I was working on a role-playing system myself, and I had this American gamer staying with me. And Americans are very good at giving their opinions. In a very
really are.
strenuous way, right? Which is absolutely fine. However, coming from my background, where one is usually reserved, and if you have nothing good to say, one is taught not to say anything rather than just say, no, that's rubbish. There was a bit of a clash of culture, but what he taught me...
That's how you get a monarchy, Guy. That's how you... That's...
Well, political systems aside, I was writing the system, and he kept coming back saying, yeah, but you can exploit this, you can exploit that, you can do this, you can do that. You chain these 3 things together and you created an immortal person. I got so frustrated with trying to resolve all of the exploits that he kept finding. Eventually, I just wrote on the cover, may not be sold within the United States of America. I was like, there you go, problem solved. I'll just exclude an entire nation of people because you're exploiting the system, and I will just sell it to people who don't exploit the system. Of course, that's absolute rubbish. Everyone would exploit it. But it was a good lesson in learning, hey, people are going to be looking at things from every angle.
Right. And it's I play with 18 people. There are 4 to 5 people in each group. Every single one of them play the game differently, and it's taught me over the years ways to think ahead and think about, like, okay, how would Rob do this? How would Bree do this? How would Jamie do this? That type of thing. And filter a lot of things through those lenses. By the way, 2 things. 1, that was the nicest way I've ever heard someone say Americans are dicks. 2, you're absolutely right. And after the last few years, I wouldn't rely on us for opinions either. It's fine. It's I get it. I live here and I get it.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I always tell people I love role playing with different people from around the world, because every culture, I haven't yet come across a culture that role plays in the same way. We all use the same rules and we use the same dice, but the attitude that comes to the table is always, it's so wonderfully different. And it's like, wow, that is such a German way of playing this game, or that's such a British way, or an Australian way, or or an American way, or a South African way, for example. It's really, really, really cool to see how this works. All right, so we've got plenty of time. So the Metal Headbanger says, how much one should prep plot? Write an adventure that lasts multiple sessions, or write session by session, or some kind of hybrid? Or should one put all of their energy into writing NPCs more rather than plot?
I've always looked at it like this: the world itself is a character. I put a premium on NPCs. I think NPCs are equally as important as player characters. I think the only thing that separates a player character from an NPC is the player characters, where we're focusing the camera. That's where we're paying attention. I think if you put a lot of time in prepping these NPCs and making them act like people, you'll be 10 times more prepared for, inevitably, when your players do something you're not expecting. You'll be far more ready to improv, think on the fly, because you'll know what these NPCs, what their goals and aspirations would be, what their ambitions are. If any, I've had some very unmotivated NPCs, but I think that I think you should be ready at a moment's notice to just drop whatever you've written and focus on what your players want, because that's why you're there. You're not there to tell them a story. You could write them a book if that's why if that's what you want to do. You're there to run a game, and the game goes where your players want to go within reason, obviously. Yeah. If they're knee deep in a dungeon and they're like, I'm bored with this, it's like, well, there's going to be a penalty for trying to leave if you dedicated yourself. But yeah, if they're in a quest line and they're not feeling it, they have every right to go and do something else. And that's kind of on you for not making it hooky enough, that not making it meaty enough for them.
That's it. And not reading them to see whether they like it or not. And it does take time. I mean, my current group, I think it took me probably 4 sessions. Okay, these are only hour-and-a-half long sessions, so more like 2 sessions, to figure out, this group likes to work through things thoroughly. They're not going to rush off. They're not impulsive. They're not going to get distracted by cheap tricks. They are going to meticulously work their way through stuff. So I have to make sure that is what they're getting. So when it kind of brings it all back to your original question of how much prep should you do, I always like to have a master campaign, a big overarching idea. It's like, okay, this is what the villain is going to try and do. This is what the nemesis is going to try and do. Whether they succeed or not is entirely up to the players and their interactions and all that kind of stuff. But on a day-to-day basis, it's like, okay, cool. Well, I have an idea for an adventure, and on my channel you can find I talk about the 5-step method, which gives you 10 bullet points for your entire adventure, and you just kind of note down those 10 bullet points and off you go. Or a more complicated method, the 1-to-1 method, which you can also find on the YouTube channel, How to Be a Great GM. And those are really as much prep as I do. But whatever prep it might be, I might plan out, these are my 10 steps. But if the players change stuff after step 2, guess what? All other 8 steps get dropped. Or they get reshuffled going, well, this is what they've now done. How is the enemy going to adjust their plan accordingly? And I think that's the critical thing, is that your NPCs, exactly what Jason was saying, they have to have goals and ambitions and stuff. And when the PCs thwart their goal or their ambition, they're not just going to go, oh, well, so much for being evil. Fire the gnolls. We're just going home. They're going to go, no. We need to now take into account what the PCs are doing, adjust and maybe upgrade from gnolls to elvish assassins, and then also take out the PCs because they're in our way, and adapt. And that's what makes your world then seem very much alive, I think. So those are my thoughts. How are we doing for questions? I'm getting a little bit behind here. Okay. Right. Where were we? Right, honorable, hang on, let's just make sure there. Yeah, honorable 596, another magical item. We'll take this one, the last one from you. A pair of crystals replacing your eyes that record any text they see. You don't have to make a check or save to remember text that you have seen, since these crystals have replaced your eyes. You can still see as normal with these crystals, but people will remember you for them.
I would hope so, yeah. Like, okay, so you getting your eyes scooped out for crystals? You're gonna look like a Sararak or something? Like, that's like,
right. I have eyes.
I think aesthetically that's super cool.
Yeah.
If you asked me right now, hey, I'm gonna scoop out your eyes, but you're gonna remember any text you read, I would just do some memory exercises. It's not worth scooping my eyes out. I'm gonna level with you. I'm good. How would blinking work? There's so many questions I have now. I don't know. What do you think?
Look, crystal eyes. It's an extreme replacement. Is it voluntary? Because if it's magical item, it's like, oh, look at these. These are pretty. Oh, okay. Now I have crystal eyes. You know, if it's voluntary, then does it require attunement or a spoon? It's like, you know, how are you going to get those in there?
If I'm facing hard times, can I hawk one of my eyes and then just wear an eye patch?
Right, and then does it
Do
still
I need
work?
both of them? Yeah.
Or does it take twice as long to read the same book then?
Or I'm only reading every other word or something.
Oh, no. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Yeah, I think, whenever you're coming up with magical items, and I do this myself, I come up with a magical item and I'm like, okay, cool. This is not just a +1. It's not just a, you have advantage on attacks or something like that. Those are there and that's great. That's absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. When you do come up with a magical item, that you need to sit back and go, well, why was this designed in the first place? So these eyes were made by a mage who wanted to be able to remember everything that they ever read. Okay, sure. But is he just going to go, okay, these are just eyes of memory? Could they not have some more properties to them? Could they not have something that's maybe a little bit of a curse as well? So when you put the eyes in, whenever you dream, you see what the mage saw, or you dream what the mage dreamed. And so that then starts to give you side quests because he dreamed of this cave, and inside this cave was this ancient text, which you can't remember, but you can remember him seeing. And there's a symbol in that they saw last week in the necromancer's den. So yeah, I always like to build up. If it's a magical item, someone's taken time and effort to make it.
Right.
It should be interesting, and it should lead should lead in some kind of direction. I think.
I try to think practical uses when designing something like that. Because again, why didn't he start with glasses? Why didn't this guy just start build, I don't know, a visor or something, just a cool RoboCop ruby visor or something like that.
Yes.
But I think at the end of the day, if you come to the conclusions well, they were insane, I don't want to use this thing then. I feel like that's going to end poorly for me because it ended poorly for them.
There we go. Absolutely. I see Game Master's Vault in the chat saying the eyes are actually the eyes are like flash drives. They can only hold so much text before they no longer work.
Oh God, that's even worse. So wait, do you got to get your eyes replaced? Like you got to go to a fantasy optometrist every once in a while? Does this hurt your charisma? Is it creepy? You have these unblinking crystal eyes?
Well, I certainly know that I would have a string of thieves trying to get at those eyes. Right?
And for good reason.
Yes. So there we go. Maybe more of a cursed item than a magical item. I'm thinking...
It sounds like a horror movie, actually, now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, though, I mean, the intention is always difficult, and yeah, we are writing in chat, so we're limited to text. So Stamser has just asked a question: is this the last episode? Question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. So yes, this is the last session of GM Live for the foreseeable future. I have spoken it over with the Web Goblin, and gasp, shock, horror. He has decided in chatting with me that yes, we won't be doing any more shows on Friday nights or Saturday nights live, basically so I can go and have a life, which is very odd and unsettling and strange. And in this time of the year, with all the things that are happening around us, you go, well, what exactly are you going to go and do? You're going to go and sit and do what? Are you going to go out? No, definitely not. I have had the COVID test done. Have you had the COVID test done?
Thankfully, no. I work from home. I don't ever want that.
I got sick last week and had to go for COVID because it might be COVID. You have to take this bud thing and shove it up your nose and then twist and turn. I'm like, well, A, that's dangerous. You go too far and the next minute but B, I have lots of hair up there apparently. And so you're sitting there twirling this thing. It's like, you got to twirl it for 10 seconds. I'm like, I'm not going to make 5 seconds. Otherwise, I'm either going to inhale this thing or I'm going to blow it against the back wall and prove what I have inside there because I couldn't do it. Anyway, but yes, I don't have COVID, thankfully.
Hey, congrats.
Yay. Yay. I was actually saying that if I did have COVID, I would probably become one of the most militant advocates for not wearing masks ever. Because I wrap up with masks. I do masks, and if I'm going into a really public space, there might be a plastic screen, and I glare at anyone who comes within sort of 3 or 4 feet of me. I'm like, back off, this is a COVID-free zone. If I still got it, I'd be like, you know what, this whole thing is a lie. That's it.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah.
We mentioned difference between Americans and you guys.
Right.
What's people's attitudes towards masks over there?
Dumb. It's really dumb.
Equally as dumb.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh my god. I got so angry. So I lived in Japan up until the beginning of this year. Where
I bet it's not a problem there at all.
It's not, because you wear a mask if you're feeling slightly sick under normal circumstances.
Yep.
And even to a large degree, it just became a fashion. You would just wear a mask because it hid your face, so you were even more anonymous in amongst the 27 million other inhabitants of Tokyo. Then I get to the UK and I'm like, okay, cool. So yes, we're doing this whole mask thing, and everyone is going to be good. And why is no one else wearing a mask? What on what planet? I even came up with a theory that I think this is the government's plan to raise the IQ level of the population. Because they went, okay, what is the simplest thing we can get people to do to prevent death? Wear a mask. Everyone's going to do that, right? No. And if you're not a mask wearer, just know that if I were to meet you, I would be glaring at you. Unless you genuinely had some kind of breathing problem.
Right there. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
I am so sorry. Political rant leaving. Hold on. This is not about politics.
No.
That is something. Hold on. Oh, that pisses me off so much. In America, this has become a red versus blue thing. This is a Democrat versus red.
Right.
The virus doesn't give a shit who you
really
vote for. It doesn't. It's not about politics. It's about your health. And more importantly, my health. That's
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
God.
Exactly. No, so it is a thing. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at it and you go, okay, well, we're not playing around the table because we're keeping our distance, right? And I've seen gaming stores where they've tried to put up perspex screens so that you can sort of play wargaming opposite your mate, or you can play Magic the Gathering and that sort of thing. And you go, okay, so we're definitely trying to adapt to this kind of space. But then again, you look at it and you go, well, I guess in a fantasy world, not everyone walks around in plate mail, and there are gnolls out there attacking convoys, right?
Totally.
So yes, I guess so. Anyway, so I'm sorry for that rant, but it has to happen. I think, I don't know. So there we are. Right, folks, how are we doing for time? We've still got 15 minutes or so. If you have any more questions, now's the time to ask them. Let's move away from topics that cause my blood pressure to rise. So yes, back to the original question. This is the last live sessions with GM. We don't want to move it to like a Tuesday or a Monday because at the moment everyone is still at home and can still participate. But given time zones are such a tricky thing we rather said, you know what, we'll just kill it. You can come and join our Discord if you have questions. I'm going to be more active on that and on the Facebook side, of course. I
feel like I ruined it, man. I showed up and the party's over. Like,
no, not at all. No, you were the last guest. You're like, okay, cool. You are, and it's been a great show. So there you are. Game Masters Vault says, when is the new book coming out? Well, yes. Yes, it was supposed to go into Kickstarter this week, as a matter of fact. but we delayed it by a month. So it's going to go onto Kickstarter in mid-December. There will be a special live show. I think it's going to be on a Tuesday to talk about that. And we delayed it for that time because it's just to give you context, Jason, it's a map book that folds away into a little A4 book. But the stickies weren't really working as well as we wanted them to. And we're working with Dungeon Fog on this, and they're like, well, there's a new cool thing coming out in the beginning of December, which I have been waiting for since I have been working with them. What's this now, for 2 years? It's a new brush tool that will be coming out. So yeah, we decided we'll delay it by a month, and then we can get going from there. Next question. Wow, now they're coming through thick and fast. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Let's see.
Over. Oh my god. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's such a big thing here. I think it's such a big thing. But
it should be a big thing everywhere. That's all I'm saying. White Tiger 225 says, I will miss the streams. Highlight of my week. Please send me a hug. White Tiger, you definitely get a hug. Next question. Dragon says, have you set up plots so the players could choose between multiple 5-step adventures at once? Example, take the road, the path, or the footpath. Do you set up multiple points? Do you just kind of throw out a whole bunch of adventures and let your people go and choose? Or are you more of a, well, here's a plot? No takers? Okay, we'll try another one.
It depends, because sometimes you want to start them off with a plot hook, or here's the job you've taken. Either how you want to accomplish that is up to you, or if you want to ditch this and do something else. It's usually something very bite-sized and quick, so that they get used to their new characters, they get used to each other, because we tend to mix up the groups between arcs. So this is the 4th time we've done that. This is the first time I think we just said, hey, here's a goal. Do whatever you want to get to that goal.
Right.
But yeah, it's completely up to you. So I like to just give them, it's that Skyrim model of just giving them 50 options. And however you decide to get there is up to you.
That's it. Absolutely. I agree. The first session of the whole campaign, have that plotted out, because then it puts them together, and then after that just throw out stuff. I mean, I often will seed additional stuff. If you watch my shows on Wednesday night, they came across an undead skeleton trapped in a cage when they were investigating this lighthouse, because I put the prop in the map, and they asked about it, and then the skeleton asked them to kill him. And when they tried to find out why, he's like, well, because I'm a really evil pirate, and I was imprisoned here for all eternity to watch ships sailing past the lighthouse that I could no longer plunder. So they killed him. And you go, well, that's the end of that quest line. No, it isn't, because now they have executed this very evil pirate and brought him release from his imprisonment. So whoever put him there is now going to come asking questions. Whether that transpires into something big or not, I don't know. It's entirely up to them. So yeah, throw out things, absolutely. Grizzle says, for players attempting to create magic items in the campaign, what would be your rules?
Oh boy, that a lot.
Yeah.
Man, I would probably, instead of it being a thing where someone comes to me with a finished product, or someone says, hey, I want to do this, and then I say, yeah, bring it to me when you're done. It would probably be working with them every step of the way. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, how would that work? Because I would want it to fit seamlessly in the world. I wouldn't want it to feel tacked on, like a World of Warcraft expansion. It's like, oh, there are karate pandas now. Like, it's like, oh, where were they? Like, I I would want this to kind of, blend in and be part of the lore. Who created it, how they created, why they created, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that gives you an answer. I could say no more than that as well. I think it would definitely be a series of adventures that they would have to go on in order to be able to make something in the first place. And definitely something particularly strenuous. The Metal Headbanger says, what books are you reading right now?
Well, I don't have time to read books. No, it's mostly RPG stuff. Robert Schwab's Punk Apocalypse. I backed that a long time ago, so I'm reading that. God, what I saw, what was it, Cogent? Like someone's
mentioning Cogent. That's the next question. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll take a look at that. I am an RPG harlot. I'll look at anything, like, because I love getting new ideas for stuff, or thinking about something in a way that I've never approached it before. So it's mostly RPG stuff right now.
There you go. I'm absolutely similar in terms of, usually it's kind of what we do. It's what we have to talk about. So you have to try and read as much as you can. But I have picked up a whole bunch of fiction books to try and get back into that space, especially at the end of the day. Instead of looking at your phone and that sort of thing, it's like, no, just read a couple pages. So currently I am reading a book by Umberto, I want to say Benini, but it's not. Umberto something or other. He's an Italian author, and he wrote a book called The Name of the Rose, which was a Sean Connery, Christian Slater movie when Christian Slater was about 16. It was his big breakout role. So this is the late 1980s, early 1990s. Ron Perlman in, as far as I'm concerned, his most terrifying role. And I mean, Ron Perlman does monsters, right? He was in Alien Resurrection. He was the Beast in the TV series. He's Hellboy. He's
Alien Resurrection the first thing that came.
Well, I mean, that I don't know. It was one of the films that he was in. That I was like, yeah, he was in that movie, right?
That's the first one.
Nonetheless, he's in this one where he is. I didn't even know that it was Ron Perlman when I was watching it, because I think he speaks Latin throughout the whole film.
Oh wow!
And it is, if you, I'm reading the book, and the book is really heavy stuff. I mean, there's a lot of Latin in the book, and the author was trying to just absolutely capture the feeling of being in this hyper dangerous medieval monastery filled with darkness and death and evil. So the monks keep quoting Latin to each other, and then there's no translation. It's just, the monk will say, "Veni siccum et ist," and then the author continues with, "And that scared me to my very core." The next day, and you're like, What did he say? Oh God, Latin dictionary, right? Page 3.
I need a translator.
Veni, what? Oh, okay. May God touch your soul, or whatever it might translate into. So, it's a great movie if you want to watch how to do a mystery film in a fantasy setting, because it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Sean Connery was in top form. Like I said, Christian Slater's big breakout. Now, the next question is from Leafy Guru, who says, have you looked at at the Cogent RP system? I have not, but you say you have it. What is it?
No, I say I'm going to look at it.
Oh, you're going to look at it. I see.
I saw it suggested like 2 or 3 times in the chat today, so it's like, okay.
There we go.
Let me add that to the list.
We'll add it to the list. There we go. So yes, neither of us have read it or looked at it, so we will go and try and do that. We're running out of time now. We've got 5 minutes left. So Gasoto83 says, how do you feel is the best way to flesh out a world? Big question. Do you start with large continents and then jump to small towns, flesh out NPCs, continents, and slow shrink it down? Or do you start at the town and grow up? Are you a top to bottom or bottom to top builder, as they say?
I'm a bottom to top. So like I tell people, start in a village square if that's where you got to start. I usually say, okay, start with the town and then slowly go out from there. There's no sense in having a big empty world, or I see the way people do it a lot of the time is to get the continent shapes down, and it's like, okay, here's where the water is, and it's like, okay, but what's there? It's like you spent 5 hours doing that, and that's great, but when you present someone with a map, like if the map in our book, if we handed you that map, you're going to expect to point to places. It's like, well, what's there? And I go, oh, I haven't done that yet. Like it's going to be a little disappointing. So I'd rather start with just a 50 by 50 map on Fantasy Grounds or something, and be able to answer questions about what's there, why is it there, that type of thing, and then branch out. Like, what cities does that city trade with? What problems do they have with the wildlife around there? That type of thing, and it feels more fleshed out. That's how I started with there.
Yeah. I think that's very solid advice. Absolutely. I might have a big world map, but that's simply so we don't end up with ninja pandas, as you say. But yes, the moment the whole continent is there, it's like, okay, cool. Well, we are there. And then you zoom in on that and you start in that space. I usually work to no more than as far as the players can ride in a day.
Yeah,
Exactly. You've got that sort of immediate countryside, and you can populate and fill it out. And only if they start to move, then you go bigger. All right. Let's see. Dashik says, when are you two going to collaborate on a book? Looking forward to it. Oh, my God. I think it would just be like the book of ranting. We would start on, it's a new system or it's a new this. And then something would trigger. And then it would just be like 50 pages of...
I feel like that'd be dangerous, because just like I've talked to you before, but like this conversation, it's like, nah, we'd fuel each other. We'd never get to a finished product. It would be, there needs to be someone on the team to go, no, stop, no more tables, no more this, no more.
Focus.
I needed that, and they didn't. That's that's me exactly. Because otherwise, the binding wouldn't be able to keep the pages that we had. We would just have 700-800 pages.
Exactly. Mostly just ranting, and then a few little rules here and there on how to handle that ranting.
The footnotes would be a rule or something. The other, it's like, well, this is why it wouldn't work.
Yes.
That's.
Sam Lobato asked the question I've been dreading. How's your NaNoWriMo going? Have you ever tried NaNoWriMo?
I absolutely have. Not this year. We put out a book. I need space. I need time. I can't. I need time before I can love again.
There you go. I started so well. By the 2nd of November, I was on 7,000 words. I was just, because it is a personal goal to finish a fantasy novel that has nothing to do with rule systems or how to write systems or how to tell good stories. It's just a story that I've written. Mm-hmm. And then I got hit by this freaking virus, which took me out for 6 days. And then you'd come out of that, and then you're suddenly catching up on work, and then it's what we're 14 days in. Mm-hmm. I think it's 14 days in. So by now you should be on like 28,000 words. So I'm looking at it going, I'm now 21,000 words behind. It's too much. But the saddest part is I know what I want to write. I have this next scene. It's also a case of going, I need to find time to do it in. And I know those are all the excuses that we come up with, but that's where I am at the moment, sadly.
I think it's a ballsy play.
Right.
To any year say, all of November is going to be fine. Yeah. All of November, nothing's going to come up. I think it's even ballsy to do that in 2020. To say, I don't see what could go wrong. Let's let it ride for 30 days. I didn't feel good about it. I wouldn't do it.
There we go.
So more power to you.
Yeah, I wanted it because it was right. Hyper focus. Make that hour per day. Just make the sacrifice. It's doable. It's possible. I don't know if it counts if you're writing multiple stuff, because I also wrote a short film a couple days ago about COVID. When I get really, really angry about stuff or really incensed or motivated or passionate, I often sort of just write short films about it. So that's why I have really weird short films in my personal collection. But I was like, I have to write the short film. I just have to write it. So that's 12 pages of script, which I don't know. I mean,
my understanding is anything you write, it doesn't have to be one project. Anything you write during November
counts.
That counts.
Well, then I'm definitely booking that in which case I'm fine.
There you go.
Amount of email I type every day. I mean, it's just insane.
Oh, I don't know if email counts. Damn, maybe
Oh, God, you can't take that away from me now that you gave it to me. It's like anything you write counts, but not emails. What?
That's work. If that counts, I've done NaNoWriMo. Fine. That's fine. I'm good.
Yeah, and that's how the book never happened, folks. Right, SWNT Gamer. Okay, this is the last questions we're taking because we're now running over time a little bit. Have you ever played Spelljammer in 5th edition? I haven't.
I haven't either.
But no. I believe it's rumored to be one of the next books that comes out if Wizards of the Coast stops going into lawsuits and stuff.
Wait, lawsuits?
Yeah, the whole Dragonlance thing.
Oh, that. Yeah.
That. Yeah, oh, that $10 million lawsuit.
That.
We won't start on that. We're going to move on quickly because the show is technically over.
I know.
So, yes. Would my nautical campaigns rules serve the purpose of ship-to-ship combat? Yes, they would, because that's what they're designed for. Although next year, once we're done with the map book, my next book is aerial campaigns, because they're so much fun, and we're going to be looking into that. All right. I'm just finishing off the questions that people have asked. Albino Reaper says, how would you suggest handling the removal or addition of an entire civilization from the material plane? I'd like to add Dragonborn and gnomes back into my world in a believable manner.
We actually just did that at the end of Arc 3. There were 4 races that have always been on the books, quote unquote, but they were sealed away. The reason being that they were really advanced for the time, and one of the races essentially realized, oh, we're going to destroy natural resources and all that. These other races that aren't as advanced aren't going to have a fair fight. So they sealed themselves away for a time, and one of the parties actually found them and set all of them free. So Arc 4 has 4 new races in the world. One of them, karate pandas. So that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to the lawsuit.
There we go. I also had ice elves which froze themselves at the end of my dragon wars and then defrosted after an earthquake. So there are ways and means of doing it. And generally, there's some sort of cataclysm that brings them around or brings them in. But I think as long as it's consistent, and then more importantly, is the NPCs in your world need to react appropriately. So when the PCs walk into town, they should be hearing Washwoman going, "Oh, did you see that new Kung Fu panda that came right through? Oh, his name was Jack. It was very strange indeed." That sort of thing, then you're incorporating this thing, so you're making it feel as if it's happening in the world and it's not just being shoved in there. Mm-hmm. All right, Elias Huka says, I think this is the second to last question. In my high fantasy game, players are law enforcement for magic, but one player is interested in forbidden magic, demonism, obviously, and other players are confused what to do. How should I react to this?
So wait, to understand, the party is there to enforce magic law, basically.
Right, I am assuming so, yes.
But one member of the party wants to do demon magic.
Yeah, the forbidden magic. They've obviously discovered that this exists and they want to explore it further. And the rest of the party, the rest of the players are confused as to what they should do, how they should react.
I mean, I would be honest, right? If it completely goes against the grain of the rest of the party, then say that. Like if you've been together for a long time, give them a chance. Like, okay, imagine you have a friend group and one of your friends, it's like, I don't know, man, I'm thinking about murder. Like, it's like, I feel like the rest of the gang would be like, okay, or we can go bowling. Like, let's try and get that aggression out some other way. I think you'd pull them aside and try to get them off that path. But if they continued on it, it completely goes against what the rest of the party believes in. Don't be afraid to explore that. And if it doesn't work out, if that player has to leave or get beaten up or something, like, explore that. That's, groups fall out in real life. Your gaming group doesn't have to be a group just because it's written that way. Explore it. See where it goes.
See where it goes. Absolutely. Cool. And I think also let them know that you are exploring it, and if they don't know what to do, they should react. How are they going to react? Right. Last question from Stampster says, if you were to start writing for the DM's Guild, what would be the first thing that you did? A one-shot, a campaign, a setting? Have you ever done DM's Guild?
I couldn't, because it was a 5e compatible thing, so you can't. So I had to put it on Drive-Thru RPG. But yeah. I shop on DM's Guild all the time.
There we go. Yeah, I was also DM skill. Big shout out to Volker, by the way. Okay, so yes, if I were doing it, I would start with a one shot. See what people react to, because there's lots of things you need to include to make something work. And if you're going to start a campaign and you kind of spend months creating this massive campaign and you've missed a few vital things, yeah, absolutely. Right, so there we go. I'm going to share up some links here. This is for the D&D podcast that Jason, you run, Dungeons and Randomness. I think if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Your new arc has just started, so you can jump right in on that. And it is a podcast, so you can listen to it and absorb it and make it
while you're driving to work or at the gym or whatever. Arc 4 just started. You don't need to listen to any of our show previous to get into it.
Lovely.
And yeah, let us know what you think.
There you go. All right, folks. So that's it from us for tonight. A little bit over time. Big thank you to you, Jason, for joining us. Thank you, sir.
Ken, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And yeah, we will see you next week, Wednesday, for the live game that I run on Wednesdays. Remember, after that show, that starts a little bit earlier than this one. It starts at 6 p.m. GMT. At the end of that show, there's 30 minutes where I talk about what I was planning in the session, what actually happened in the session, and what I had done to try and keep it going or figure out plot holes and the like, and we'll be able to answer questions therein as well. But that is it. No more live sessions with a GM for the near future anyway, until such time as I don't want to have a social life or, find someone who might want to spend the rest of my life with. Who knows? Whatever. We've all got to do something right. Anyway, thank you all for being part of this show. I have thoroughly enjoyed having you along and chatting to all of you. And we'll see you around on the Discord, I'm absolutely sure. Until next time, however, happy gaming.